Shabbat Shalom to all our faithful friends and supporters, and of course our family. We're going to give you the parasha for this week. It's Parashat Vayera, the fourth weekly Torah portion in the annual cycle of Torah reading. And we're going to look at Genesis 18:1 to Genesis 22:24. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself towards the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, may Lord, do not pass your servants by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat, so you can be refreshed, and then go on your way. Now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered. "Do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quickly, prepare 3 measures of fine flour, knead it and make bread cakes." Genesis 18:6. And Abraham ran to the herd and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man, and he hurried to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. Genesis 18:8. Then they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "There in the tent." He said, "I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent door, which was behind him. Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have become old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord, being old also?" Genesis 18:12. And the Lord said unto Abraham, "Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child which I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son." Genesis 18:13 and 14. Sarah denied it, however, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. And he said, "No, but you did laugh." And the Lord said, "The outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and the sin is exceedingly grave. I will go down and see if they have done entirely according to this outcry which has come to me, and if not, I will know." Genesis 18:20 and 21. Now sin. The sin of Sodom was not only about sex. The sin of Sodom was pride, lust, greed, sloth, envy, wrath, gluttony, you name it. Evil things. It was very grave, especially the lust. Genesis 18:17 and 18. And the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him." The nations in Hebrew are referred to as Goim, Gentiles. "For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him." Genesis 18:19. Then the men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham still stood before the Lord. When God revealed his plan to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah due to the wickedness of those cities, Abraham asked God to spare the people. In fact, Abraham engaged in a lengthy conversation to meditate for the cities. Abraham wanted God to spare the righteous people who lived in Sodom and Gomorrah. He asked, will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? Genesis 18:23-25. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 should be found there. So he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, indeed now I have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 should be found there. So he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak but once more. Suppose 10 should be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Lord went his way as soon as he had finished speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Abraham did his best to try and save this fate of these cities. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at evening, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, they rose to meet them. Genesis 19:1. And he said, now behold, my lords, please turn aside into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early and go on your way. They said, however, no, but we shall spend the night in the square. Genesis 19:2. Yet he urged them strongly. So they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he prepared a feast for them, and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Genesis 19:3. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, surrounded the house, both young and old, all the people from every quarter. They called in to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came in to you this night? Bring them out to us so that we may know them. Genesis 19:4-5. Genesis 19:6-8. But Lot went out to them at the doorway and shut the door behind him. And he said, please, my brothers, do not act wickedly. Now behold, I have 2 daughters who have not had relations with man. Please let me bring them out to you, and do to them whatever you like. Only do nothing to these men, inasmuch as they have come under the shelter of my roof. It was customary in those days for whoever was under the roof of a house, the owner of the house would yield protection at all costs. Genesis 19:9-10. And they said, stand back. Then they said, this one came in to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. So they pressed hard against the man Lot, and came near to break down the door. But the men inside reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. Genesis 19:12-13. And then the 2 men said to Lot, whom else have you here? A son-in-law, and your sons, and your daughters, and whomever you have in the city. Bring them out of the place. For we are about to destroy this place, because of the outcry has become so great before the Lord, that the Lord has sent us to destroy it. In Genesis 19:14, Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who were too many to marry his daughters, and said, "Up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city." But he appeared to his sons-in-law to be jesting. In other words, the sons-in-law were not interested. They couldn't care less, and were not thought that Lot was joking. Lot had not a great spiritual influence on his family at that point. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. Genesis 19:24-25. It is unlikely that such a violent destruction had ever been experienced in a city before then. Lot's wife looked back as they flew over, and she thereupon turned into a pillar of salt. Now, I'm going to show you, this is an amazing photograph of a figure which looks that of a woman taken recently, in the past few years, near the site where Sodom believed to have been, along the Dead Sea area. As you can see, the figure looks like a woman gazing over the plain. This stone pillar is known today as Lot's wife. And this is the plain, the Dead Sea. You can see the desert, but you can see the figures look like buildings. It says, "The Lord rained down burning sulfur." If we look in the pages of the Bible in Genesis 19:24, we can see where the sulfur came from. Now, I have a sidetrack a bit, but I'm going to give you an explanation of what happened to one of my trips in Israel in 2007. Whilst on a tour in this area, we found this date stone embedded inside a piece of rock, which I broke from the cliff bottom. What an extraordinary find. It was not a coincidence. Going back to the Parashat, Genesis 19:30-31, Lot and his two daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his two daughters lived in a cave. One day the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man around here to lie with us, as is the custom over all the earth." Now, filled with strong drink, he committed incest. He was deceived by his daughters because they got him drunk. Incest is sexual activity between family members or close relatives. Genesis 19:33-38. And they made the father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with the father, and he perceived not when he lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, "Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go through in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father." And they made the father drink wine that night also. And the younger rose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by the father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Benjamin. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. And Abram journeyed from hence towards the south country, and dwelt between Kadesh and Sur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abram said to Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." And Amalek king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. But God came to Amalek in a dream by night, and said to him, "Behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which you hast taken for she is a man's wife. Now we recall that Abraham passes Sarah off as his sister twice. What was the motivation for this rather odd act? Is obviously fear. Abraham feared for his life. And bear in mind, Jehovah had given Abraham some pledge of prosperity. Even so, Abraham at that point feared for his life and called Sarah his sister. Now, yet Jehovah intervenes in both these occasions. And what is obviously true is divinely obtained deceptions will always work out with divine rewards. The Lord dealt with Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to his son, whom Sarah bore him. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Genesis 21:8-10. The child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, playing with the son Isaac. So she said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of the slave woman shall not inherit along with my son Isaac." And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away, and she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Genesis 21:11-13. The matter was very distressing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, "Do not be distressed because the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you. For it is through Isaac that offspring shall be named for you. As for the son of the slave woman, I will make a nation of him also, because he is your offspring." Excuse me, that's my cuckoo clock going off. 6 o'clock. God hears us in our time of distress, and I can surely affirm this by experience. Genesis 21:15-18. And the water was spent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat her down over against him, a good way off, as it were a bow shot. For she said, "Let me not see the death of the child." And she sat over against him, and lifted up her voice, and wept. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad drink. Genesis 21:19. We're going to look at the treaty at Beersheba. Genesis 21:24-34. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, "God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me and the country where you now reside as a foreigner the same kindness I have shown to you." Abraham said, "I swear it." So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham set apart 7 ewes lamb from the flock, 20, and Abimelech asked Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 ewes lamb you have set apart by themselves?" He replied, "Accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I dug this well." So that place was called Beersheba, because the two men swore an oath there. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Now, Beersheba can be split in two words. Beer meaning well, and Sheba is 7, so it's also known as the wells of 7. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "The fire and wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the two of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham!" "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." And to this day it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendant as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendant will take possession of the cities of the enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me." Sometime later, Abraham was told, "Milcah is also a mother. She has borne sons to your brother Nahor, Uz, the firstborn, Buz, his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazor, Fildash, Jiglash, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. Milcah bore these 8 sons to Abraham, brother Nahor. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also had sons, Tebach, Gaham, Tahash, and Machach. And this, my friends, my brothers and sisters, ends the parasha for this week. God bless you. Have a nice week ahead.